Hello all and welcome, and I am the MGTOW Philosopher, and in this video I'd like to talk about the subject of happiness. My happiness, your happiness. How is it that people are or are not able to be happy? And how can you be happy? Of course, the first question you have to ask yourself is whether or not you are happy. If you don't already know the answer, that is. And the funny thing is that if you have to ask that question, you probably ain't. For you see, happiness is a state of mind and being. You either are or aren't. Of course, upon hearing this, it's likely that you'll ask the question, how then do I become happy? Well, the answer is that you don't. You're either happy or you're not. It isn't a matter of simply doing this or that, and presto, you become happy. No. You know what's funny? But when you're growing up, no one really teaches you about happiness in any direct way. Not really. At least that seems to be the case with most of us insofar as our upbringings. Most parents don't even seem to consider happiness as something that needs to be taught directly. Heck, in the eyes of most, it's just a given that your kids will be happy so long as he or she is educated and thereby has the tools and the opportunities available to them to do what they want to do in life. Do this, and the carrot at the end of the stick that's happiness, well, that'll be yours. Essentially, happiness is seen as a reward for a job well done. And that's all you need to be happy, isn't it? Just do the job of life well, and happiness will be yours once you've attained that which you desired and worked hard to achieve, right? Happiness, after all, is just a byproduct of getting what you want, isn't it? And that's the only lesson that most parents teach their kids, a lesson that we as adults continue to carry with us. Chase it. Go after it. Achieve something you want to do or want to have, and you'll then find happiness. Yes, it's a culmination of all your efforts. But you see, happiness isn't something you can simply chase or catch. It isn't something that you can find, attain, or acquire. It cannot be achieved through fulfilling one's wants, cravings, or desires. However, if that's the case, if happiness cannot be acquired or achieved, then how can one be happy in this world? Well, to be honest, the answer is as much about what you don't do as it is about what you do. First, don't fall into the trap of thinking that things or achievements can make you happy. That's not to say that things such as dreams are bad. No, having dreams, well, that's a good thing. But achieving them, well, that doesn't bring you happiness. Not really. No. No thing can do that. Hence, don't tell yourself you'll be happy when you get or achieve something. You won't. Second, don't live anywhere but in the now, because only now exists. You know, we humans, we have a unique ability to live in other times and places. Our minds are sophisticated enough that we can leap forward into all sorts of possible futures, or retreat into the past. Too often we live in our own minds and don't pay attention to what's going on in the world around us. We end up experiencing the past, the future, or other possible realities instead of experiencing the here and now. Simply put, don't live in other times or places. The past, it doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. No other time or place exists except for right here, right now, in this moment. No other now exists except the now you are in. That's the now that deserves every single bit of your attention and care. Anything else? Well, anything else just isn't living. Anything else simply isn't real and is a waste of your precious time. Only ever live in the here and now, because that's all there is and that's all you have. Third, stop thinking those deep thoughts. Life, the universe, it's all one giant mystery that can never be solved, but I'm still going to spend time trying to figure it out. No, you'll never figure it out. So don't even try. And far too many people spend so much of their time trying to figure out the so-called mystery of life that they end up not living at all. Why are we here? What is life? What's the purpose of life? Who made us? Where did we come from? What is the meaning of it all? And while they're spending all that time trying to figure out that which can't be figured out, life is just passing them by, and they're not living at all. Every moment wasted on the so-called great mystery that is life is that much less time you're spending living. You'll accomplish more if you spend less time worrying about the so-called mystery that is life and more time focused on the here and now. Stick with the questions that have real answers that are directly related to the reality we live in, and not those questions that have no answers at all. Life's a mystery for a reason. Fourth, expectations. Have as few of them as necessary. This, in part, has to do with living in the moment. And it's not to say that if you're a boss, you shouldn't have expectations about whether or not your employees are doing a good job or not, or that you shouldn't expect your mechanic to do a good job fixing your car. No. Some expectations, after all, are valid, warranted, and, by the way, necessary. Just don't have them when it comes to that which you simply can't know. For example, what might be around the next bend or over the next horizon? You see, that's part of the joy of life, the not knowing. And the moment you start losing the sense of wonder and awe that comes with the unexpected, the unknown, well, that'll be a sad day indeed. Fifth, attachment. It's bad. To become attached to things, to times, to ways of living, to ways of thinking, none of these are good. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. It's the one constant in the universe that you can count on. Though I will admit that some people seemingly never do change, except that they age, but in every other way, they remain more or less the same. That said, you most certainly cannot count on life to remain the same forever. And why would you want it to? The adventure that is life is an adventure, at least in part, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what change might bring. And whatever it brings, good or bad, there'll always be some kind of lesson to be learned. However, if you become attached to your way of life, your way of thinking, your way of doing things, and a better way presents itself, well, you won't have the ability to become better, wiser, because of said attachment. Don't become attached to the way things are. Change is an inevitable part of life. And if you know this and accept this fact, then you'll always be able to adapt to any situation. You'll also be able to see change for what it really is, something that makes life interesting and worth living. To have any other mindset is just self-limiting. Sixth, control. You have none. This lesson is a hard one for most people to learn and accept, because everyone thinks they're in control of their lives, but they're not. Yeah, sure, you can seemingly control certain aspects of your life. For example, whether or not you go outside or eat lunch at 11:30 instead of 12, but you cannot control whether or not you get hungry. You cannot control whether or not your body needs sunlight to help it produce vitamin D. The only thing you can do is do things that make you feel like you have control, but in the end, you really don't. You can live your life as best you can and affect outcomes to a certain degree in one way or another based on the choices you make, but in the end, you don't really have total control. And that's okay. Seventh, acceptance. Accept that you may or may not be what you want to be. Accept that you may or may not become a doctor. Accept that you may or may not become an astronaut. Accept that you may or may not get married and have kids. Accept that you may or may not get that sports car you wanted. Accept that you may or may not become a world-famous athlete. Accept that you may or may not become a master musician who is known throughout the world. Accept that whatever you want and whatever you want to achieve in life, you may or may not achieve it. But at the same time, you may. And the fact that you may not should never stop you from doing something that you find love in the doing of. Accept that you may or may not achieve your dreams, and that either way, you're extraordinary, regardless, because you're doing what you find love in doing. that in and of itself is extraordinary indeed. The why of doing it is key. The why, that's everything. Eighth, in the end, we pursue the things that we find love in doing. That's the gift that's bestowed upon us by doing that which suits us. Do what you find love in doing, regardless of what may or may not be the eventual outcome. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have dreams, but don't in any way think that you can control the outcome. You may or may not fulfill your dreams, and that's okay too. Enjoy a thing. Do a thing because you find love in the doing of it, not because of what it may or may not do for you in some far-off future time. By the way, one should be very, very careful about applying this view to one's work life, because maybe the things you find the most love in doing are not very profitable, or perhaps you're just not, nor ever will be, good enough at these things to make any real profit. So be circumspect in this regard, because always following your passions, no matter what the circumstances, is some of the worst advice you could be given or give to someone. Use your brains in this regard. If someone knows themselves very well, then determining the answer as to whether or not you can make a living from your passions, well, that'll be an easy question to answer. You don't have to make a living doing what you love to be happy. No. Just being able to do it, that's enough. Remember, happiness is not tied up in any one thing. We create the meaning in our lives. Ninth, pay attention. Most people don't. Most people are inside their own heads, off somewhere else, doing something else, or they're on their cell phones. They're paying attention to any and everything except the place and time they're actually in. And that's the only thing that matters. That place, that time, that one moment where we all exist within. Get out of your own head. Look around. Focus every bit of attention, awareness, perception that you have on the world around you. Don't exist anywhere else. Not in your head, not in the future, not in the past, not in some other place. Only here and now. And if you can devote yourself 100% to the moment that you are in, you'll be amazed at the things you can see that were formerly not even evident to you. Everything that had before seemed so ordinary and mundane will all of a sudden take on an incredible vibrancy and intensity, the likes of which you've never before experienced. To devote yourself 100% to the moment, to the experience of simply living, can literally open up a whole new world to you, one that you have not been in to date, even though you think you have for your entire life. You'll also be amazed at just how well you can do things when you are utterly and completely devoted to this moment. No thought, no feeling, no anything except that one moment that is now. Because you're only ever really in that one moment. There's nothing else. And when you put all that aside and you devote yourself to this one moment in time and exist only in this moment, then you are that moment. And you'll be able to do amazing things and perceive amazing things that you formerly could not. Pay attention. 10th, it's the journey, not the destination, that brings us happiness. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't have destinations. They just need to understand that it's the journey to reach that destination that brings us happiness and fulfillment, not the destination itself. And when you understand this and live in the now with total devotion to the moment, you'll understand that every moment we have, every moment we experience is a special one. They're all extraordinary. They're all unique. There's no such thing as an ordinary moment. Happiness isn't some gift or reward. It's not something you finally get to have at the end of a long journey. It is the journey. It's something that everyone can have. It's there for everyone should they make the choice to avail themselves of it. You can be happy if you simply choose to try and understand and then adopt these things that I've listed here. And if you so choose, you can be happy every moment of every day for the rest of your life. It really is your choice. Please like, subscribe, and donate to my Patreon if you feel so inclined. You'll find a link in both the last 20 seconds of this video and in the description. I am the MGTOW Philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.